Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this amazing moment that we have together here at the SSB virtually still. Let me mute myself here. Excuse me for one moment. And I'm sorry about that little technical difficulty there. I was listening, hearing myself, so it's kind of hard the repeat in the background. But again, good afternoon and welcome everyone to this amazing Saturday when we have our moment here at the SSB, still virtually, but still strong, where we give a continuation to our studies, to the commemoration, if we can say this way, of enlightening ourselves. I say commemoration because life is full of curveballs, difficulties, and for us who truly give ourselves the opportunity to stop, think about life, rethink while we're listening to a well guided message and an uplifting ideal, it certainly is something that we're conquering when we do that to ourselves, something that we are definitely allowing ourselves to grow spiritually, intellectually, and in many other ways, and helping others as well. So, congratulations to you, and welcome to this amazing moment that we partake together. Today, we will give continuation to the studies of the book Jesus in Our Lives, with a book by Joanna de Angelis, with Kirsten here with us today. The last chapter that she actually talked or discussed with us, shared with us, was Jesus in Rest. It was chapter 16th. And today, it will be Jesus and Insecurity. Chapter 17 of this amazing book. This teacher that we have with us that brings us so much information, so much uplifting ideals, as we have mentioned, guiding us to be happy, right? Before we pass the word to Kirsten, we would like to read a passage of the book, again, by Joanna de Angelis, entitled Happy Life. And then we will pray together, and I'll pass the word to Kirsten. The message goes like this. In the old version, by the way, it's of the book. It's page 113. The pain that reaches you is yours. Nobody will suffer it for you. Your friends will take pity and try to help you, but it will be nailed in the flesh of your soul. Similarly, the happiness that reaches you is yours. There will be laughter and satisfaction among those who love you, but you cannot share the feeling of jubilation with anyone. This being the case, when you are suffering, do not impose bitterness on those around you. When you are happy, you cannot make them feel happy. This way, we take this message to heart and we invite one another for our opening prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, we are thankful for this amazing opportunity that you have allowed us to come together as a family here at the SSB through the help of technology, through the good work, persistence of our friends who put this work together, to stop, rethink about our lives, our ways, and to work in our insecurity. And most importantly, the teachings of our Master Jesus dealing with insecurity. We ask that you bless the minds and hearts of all of us who are following this moment now, those who will be following us in the future, by revisiting this amazing video that is being recorded. We ask that you guide us so we can help those who will be insecure in their lives coming towards us. We ask that in the moment of difficulties that we may face, that we can be a beacon of light for ourselves and for others. And why not? Since we are now calm and relaxed, pray for those who may be in need who may be going through a tough moment. And as Joanna de Angelis says, those who are happy as well, let us be joyful with them, send good vibrations so that happy moments can happen more often. This way, we invite everyone to have a quick moment for us to send our good vibrations to those who may be in need. A moment of silence so we can share this moment with one another. This way, we are thankful, dear Lord, and may you guide the heart and mind of our dear friend, Kirsten, who will conduct this afternoon into the evening message, and so be it. So, as we were saying before, this is a continuation of this amazing book, Jesus in Our Lives. And Kirsten today will be speaking about Jesus and insecurity. Kirsten, please take this message away with us and let us hear.
Thank you so much, Leo. Just trying to make sure that my audio is working over here. Great. Well, welcome. Good evening to all of you watching on the web or perhaps the later recorded version of this. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you haven't had the opportunity to participate with us before, that's okay. If you are joining us for the first time, we hope that you find the same amount of solace and interesting facts as we have on this journey with Joanna de Angelis and studying this particular book, Jesus in Our Days. And we have shown the book before, and then we do have a picture in our PowerPoint, but just wanted to show this real quick. It is a wonderful book. It is not a novel. It is a chapter book, so there are different topics that she discussed, but it's always surrounded with a particular issue and Jesus and Joanna's perspective, from a spiritist perspective, obviously, what that means. So let's dive right in to today's topic, and it's Jesus and insecurity. So when I say that word, insecurity, what comes to mind? And I'm going to encourage you, for those who are watching this live, to please feel free to make comments in the comment section, share any questions, even throughout this presentation as as things unravel. If something pops into your mind, or if you just want to interact within the chat with other viewers, please feel free to do so. We encourage that in lieu of obviously being able to be together in the setting of a Spiritist Center. This is as close as we're going to get to, talking and chatting with one another, in a sense, at least when we're gathering together to learn about Spiritism. So when you hear the word insecurity, you might automatically have a picture in your mind. You might think about, well, I'm insecure about my weight, or I'm insecure about this aspect of my physical body, or this or that. When in actuality, it's something much more deeper that Joanna is talking about in this particular chapter, which is chapter 17. It's something much more on a deeper level. It's that feeling, it's that sense that we feel doubtful.
We have a little technical issue here. We should be back soon. And we invite everyone to, as Kirsten was just reminding us, what kind of insecurity we have inside of us. Sometimes we may think that, oh, I don't have any type of insecurity and you have any issue in my life. But perhaps sometimes we get that glimpse of doubts inside of us, right? That can be a leading cause or a start to feel insecure. So we invite everyone that we to truly think about it as we do the best we can to bring Kirsten back and continue with our topic of tonight. It's also important for us to remind one another that we all can go back to the website and revisit the previous chapters that Kirsten have talked about this book, Jesus in Our Lives, and really read the book and watch the presentation. Why is it important to read the book? Because you will get your own ideas, and it will be helpful for you to digest what Kirsten is also bringing to us. I believe she's back with us now. Thank God. Thank Jesus. And we'll give continuation to the talk.
Talk about feeling insecure, Leo. Talk about feeling completely thrown off your game. This was just so we could share with you live, an actual authentic experience of what it might feel and look like to actually be in a moment where we are vulnerable. So Jesus and insecurity. Oftentimes an image comes to our mind when we think about the word insecurity. Probably straight off the bat, you might be thinking in terms of how you're feeling. And I think I might still have a technical difficulty here. I apologize. Hold on one second. You might be thinking of a physical aspect of your body. But when Joanna's referring to insecurity here, it's something much more profound. It's that inner feeling we feel inside of us when we're doubtful, when we're unsure. So let's dive right into understanding a little bit about this meaning of insecurity. From the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it's deemed as the condition or quality of feeling insecure, being insecure, lack of safety, danger, hazard, insecurity of a building liable to fire, insecurity of a debt. Just feeling very sort of a lack of faith in a sense. You just feel unsteady in an emotional sense. So why is insecurity even significant at all? When we think about that, it might seem like, well, there's so many other aspects of my spirituality that I could be working on. I need to work on this particular vice. I need to work on strengthening certain virtues. Indeed, those are great things to be aware of. However, it is important for us to understand insecurity and the role that it plays, not just within Spiritism and the definition that Spiritism gives it, but in our everyday lives across the spectrum of our understanding of what insecurity means. So much so, most of us are familiar with Dr. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you notice here, from bottom to the top, each aspect of this triangle, in order to go to the next level, has to be fulfilled. So for instance, our physiological needs need to be met before we can move on to safety, feeling secure. And before we can move on to belonging and love and intimate relationships and friends, we need to be able to feel secure and feel that sense of safety. We're bringing this because this is part of our own spiritual growth. This is a part of our own self-growth. And at the top, if you all are familiar with Abraham Maslow, if not, you can easily Google or look on YouTube and have a great, more in-depth explanation. But the idea is to reach the top, to reach this sense of fulfillment, or what Dr. Maslow referred to as self-actualization. So, but from a spiritist perspective, let's try to understand what Joanna brings to us, her viewpoint with Jesus. She says, on the earth, security is very difficult to achieve. Since Earth is a quote-unquote planet of trial and expiation, evolution always demands arduous efforts in the struggles that all have to face. So it's not easy to achieve that sense of security. Just likewise, the fragile body, subject to the many things that assail it, provides only temporary states of harmony because it is altered by wear and balance and continuous renewal of its parts. So, in layman's terms, by the very nature of our experience as human beings, it lends to us this level of insecurity. We can easily understand this as there are many things in our lives that are not certain. There are many things that we can be unsure about. But hopefully today we're going to learn a little bit with Jesus and Joanna how to understand and manage this. She goes on to say, from the emotional point of view, the inheritance is latent in the spirit, responsible for its growth, surface and resurface as anguish and joy succeeding each other until the moment of liberation. And as we were just having a conversation earlier today with other friends, we bring with us all of our vices and virtues, all of our tendencies, our certain thought patterns, behaviors from one life to the next. So all that which we have acquired, we bring with us, and it manifests itself in different ways. But one of the ways that Joanna brings to us, one of the things for us to really be aware of is how a lot of this actually is enslaving us. And we want to be able to focus on our own self-development or self-growth, not because it sounds fancy and it sounds pretty to say, and it seems like the new fad and the thing that everybody's doing, but for a very different reason. For the simple fact that we oftentimes are not even reaching our full potential. And we're not talking about reaching our full potential of becoming a genius and discovering cure for cancer or other ailments. We're talking about just the simple happiness and joy of the simplest things in life, of everyday life. Joanna says that furthermore, people's moral level has not allowed them to break free from their aggressive instincts, which cause neuroses, paranoia, mental illnesses, and violence. So we create and build our own cages through our own imperfections, because we're still on this path of evolution, we're still growing. It is a process. It is a process that we do have to be kind to ourselves and understand that it takes time. She goes on to say, consequently, wrongs overwhelmingly increase while the dynamics of repression also become merciless, making the whole world an immense arena in which antagonistic forces incessantly battle one another. So it might seem like we're put in a situation where she says, consequently, because of all of this, the wrongs are overwhelmingly increased, while the dynamics of repression and mercilessness, making our world this one big arena of fights and arguments and battles with one another. The markets for sex, drugs, and vice in general have driven populations to insanity, and insecurity has become almost the normal state of affairs. Everybody tries to get used to it and live with it, almost expecting a personal attack at any time. And another quote I didn't put on the screen, but I will share. She says, distrust has set in, and a whole string of omens has followed, gradually dominating people's psychological landscape. So the way that Joanna's presenting all this to us might seem rather bleak and depressing. I think, well, what's even the purpose if life is this bad? No, we do have to acknowledge the certain realities of life, of what's going on our planet currently. We have a lot of good going on, but we still have a lot of people, human beings, souls, that are still struggling, what Joanna refers to as aggressive instincts, our basic instincts. And consequently, that ends up causing a lot of issues. And we can see that nowadays. In recent years, the advent, rather, that's been going on for quite some time, human trafficking has been brought to light by many famous people, good and bad, some for it, and some actually trying to prevent it and work with local authorities or large organizations to combat it. So on one hand, we have a lot of really not so great things happening, pretty horrendous things happening. But on the flip side, we have a lot of amazing souls and people that are working towards combating it. So all of this can make us feel insecure. All of this contributes to us having that feeling of insecurity. But, she says, understanding the primitive state in which humanity of his time struggled, Jesus knew how difficult it would be to instill peace in people's hearts and how many tears would have to be shed for that to happen. This is why he foresaw the catastrophes and hecatombs, which is public sacrifices, people would unleash, as well as countless afflictions they would impose on themselves as they slowly learned to respect life, according to what his disciple wrote in the prophetic sermon, and they're referring to Mark chapter 13, verse 1 in the Bible. It talks about the destruction of the temple. You can read it at your leisure. What was happening at Jesus' time, that hectic society, that unstable society, we are still experiencing that today. So she's bringing this as a parallel, in a sense, to show us that this is still relevant. This message that she's bringing to us is still relevant today. She goes on to say, however, Jesus offered a peaceful vision when he stated that those who persevere until the end shall be saved. And we'll talk a little bit about that word, being saved, which is commonly used, at least here in the English language. It might have a very different connotation if you grew up within the Catholic or Christian church, but we'll talk about that here in a second. She goes on to say, in that context, salvation is to be understood as a state of a tranquil conscience, of self-discovery, in which the inner world looms, governing the dysfunctional impulses and harmonizing the individual. I'm going to restate that. Salvation is to be understood as a state of tranquil conscience, as a state of tranquil conscience and of self-discovery, when our inner world looms, governing those dysfunctional impulses and harmonizing the individual. So it's when we're able to sort of come back to balance within ourselves. That is, according to Joanna, what is to be understood to be saved. It's not some metaphorical or distant, untangible thing. It's actually something we can put into practice in our lives, finding that state of balance, being self-aware, and also beginning this journey of self-discovery. She goes on to say, saved are those who know who they are, what they have come here for, and how to accomplish it, thus confidently going about fulfilling their commitment. Now, she doesn't say, notice, she doesn't say it's a perfect human being. She does not say it's a person who gets everything right every single time. That's not what the text is saying. It's noteworthy to pay attention to. She's saying it is a person who has goals, who knows their purpose in life, who knows their higher purpose in life and is taking steps to accomplish that. It is this idea of inner balance, having set those goals for ourselves and marching towards it no matter what, and being confident with it. That is salvation. That is our salvation. That is our saving grace. That despite what chaotic environment we may be in, we can still set goals for ourselves, work on ourselves, and working on this, as she refers to, a state of a tranquil conscience. What does that mean? How does one have a tranquil conscience? What does that mean for you, those of you who are listening? What does that look like for you? I'll pretend like I'm listening to you all give your responses. So maybe it looks like being authentic, being truly who you are. You might say, well, Kirsten, I have some really not so great parts of me. Well, the first step is acknowledging the different parts that we have and working towards the parts that we want to refine and working on the parts that are good, making them stronger. So it's okay that we're acknowledging that we have areas of struggle. She's not saying that we need to be perfect, just that we should have some goals set in mind, but we know who we are, our purpose. She goes on to say that each person has a specific commitment in and toward life. Jesus had his. He lived it, he demonstrated it. His was building the kingdom of God on earth. But ours might not be that grandiose. It's highly likely that sometimes our only mission and commitment in this life is to be a good person, a good mother or father, sister or brother, staying committed to, let's say, for instance, to Spiritism, to the work in Spiritism, or maybe you're a researcher, scientist, or you're just a helpful neighbor. Oftentimes we might get lost in this idea of having to fulfill some grand task, when sometimes just being a good person, that's what we need to stay committed to. She goes on to say, he never stalled, nor did he ever postpone that achievement. Likewise, personal and collective security is the results of the level of the individual and social group's commitment. He attested to his security at every moment by being unrestrictedly committed. So no matter what happened to him, no matter what circumstances he was enduring, no matter who betrayed him, what he went through, what chaos he was thrown into, he always was committed to the truth and to being authentic and to being good and loving and kind and to show forgiveness. Now you might say, well, I'm not at that level yet, or I'm not perfect at it. That's not the point. We don't have to be perfect at it. We're not expected to be perfect at it. We are expected to try and to try our best and to do all the good that we can do. His commitment to the truth often revealed the security that sustained him in his endeavors. Never aggressive, never stubborn. His certainty was serene, his determination unshakable. The master's security calmed those who he supported, those who trusted in him. That's why there's that famous saying that he says, my yoke is light, I believe it is. Because to be with Jesus, to be in his presence, to experience him, and we're not even talking about experiencing one of his miracles or anything like that, but simply being in his presence. And we can even have the same experience now. You might think, oh, well, gosh, I wish I would have lived at the time of Jesus and been able to experience and been around him. We can commune with him now. There are great meditations that are out there. You can make up your own meditation or sit in prayer with him. We can connect on an emotional, energetic level. That's why it's so important for us to be balanced and be mindful of the thoughts and habits we have so we can stay in tune with the higher vibrations of life. She goes on to say that Jesus teaches how people are to strive for their mental evolution. Let's stop there for a second. Jesus teaches how people are to strive for their mental evolution alongside their physical evolution, both of which take time. Let's stop there at that sentence for a second, and let's talk about that. Inevitably, we know that our species has been evolving. We're not going to get into the vast array of science that accompanies that, but we know that we are evolving. Our physical bodies have been evolving. We know that the frontal lobe, the research on that and the advent of that, we could research that and talk about that for a whole other hour. But what's important to mention is both of those things is that we are to strive for this mental evolution alongside our physical evolution. What is mental evolution? For those of you who are watching, what is it? And why was it important for Jesus to teach people how to strive for that? It's significant. Let's not take for granted the words of Joanna. Let's not think, well, that sounds pretty, or just disregard it because maybe we don't grasp the full understanding of it. Yes, we have our physical shell, our more denser cells, but we also have the more or less dense parts of ourselves, our mind, our emotions, all of those experiences we carry with us. Jesus was teaching every day of his life, the way in which he lived, as a model and guide. That's why we call him our model and guide, as a way for us to follow. He never harbored negative thoughts or anger towards his neighbor. He forgave as he was being crucified. He extended forgiveness to those quote unquote sinners, those who had not lived the best life. And he extended love and compassion to them. In every area of his life, even people who were betraying him, he did nothing but extend compassion and forgiveness to them. Now you might think, well, how is that mental evolution? Well, everything has to do with how we internalize. Everything that we experience around us, we are also experiencing in our inner world through our own perspective and perceptions. So if I'm able to live a balanced life, if I can manage my emotions and be at peace with myself, I'm able to externalize that. And the opposite is true. That's why it's important for us to think about that it's just as important for us to take care of our physical body as it is to take care of our mental, emotional states. And it's not us who's saying this. Time and time again, when you read Joanna, when you read Spiritism in different books, whether it's in the 5 books of the codification or whether outside of Spiritism and you're reading research and what science is bringing to us, this is the call. Yes, it's a bit of a fad going on, we would say, in recent years. In the industry, of the self-help industry, they say, whoever they is, it's $1 billion industry. But taking that out as a factor, it's a very noteworthy and important for us to point out that there's a reason why across the globe, we are inclined to seek out better things. And the gospel, according to Spiritism, tells us that's what differentiates us from the animal kingdom, is this incessant desire to get better, to be better, to strive to be better. It's within us. But let's read on with Joanna's words. She says, consequently, he did not offer a simplistic or salvationist recipe. Instead, He proposes maturation by constant effort through advances and setbacks to instill the learning experience and proceed until reaching the ultimate goal. Layman's terms, he did not say, hey, here are the rules and go follow them, super easy, and you'll be doing fine. No, there was no recipe per se. And by no means is anything that he teaches simple or even easy. Working on ourselves, it's a challenge to face the shadow parts of us. Those are the parts that are so deeply buried within us. Sometimes we even don't know much about those parts of ourselves. We're not well acquainted with it. But instead, what he proposed was for us to constantly be working on ourselves and to be learning through this constant effort of us working on ourselves, through every instance in our lives, whether we have setbacks or not, whether we have challenges or not. Inevitably, we all have challenges. But the purpose is to grow from it. So if you can bring to mind a recent challenge you've had, a recent setback that you perceive as a setback, you feel is a setback, and think about what are the lessons to be learned for you in those experiences. What is life trying to teach you about yourself? Because ultimately, when we encounter setbacks and challenges, we're actually getting to know someone. And not to sound corny, but it's like Michael Jackson's song, "The Man in the Mirror." You're getting to know these deeper parts of yourself. They're being brought out of us through different experiences in our lives. And a lot of times they're not that pleasant. And that's why we tend to try to find ways to bury it or to do away with those very challenging emotions or experiences. We don't want to deal with suffering and all that comes along with it. In Western society, we live in this ideal where it's like, bury everything, save yourself with a pill and move on. Of course, allopathic medicine is very much needed. We need medications and therapies to harmonize the cells in our bodies. Absolutely, 100%. But that shouldn't be the only therapy that we're utilizing, because we're not just the physical body. We're not just skin and bone and flesh. We know that we are so much more deeper than that. So it's a challenge that Joanna presents to us, that instead of running from our problems, our challenges, running and trying to mask or find ways to cover our insecurities, but embrace it, become acquainted with that part of ourselves, and see how we can fortify ourselves to walk through life utilizing love and the Christ consciousness, the Christ perspective, for us to reach what she says is the ultimate goal, what we brought earlier from Dr. Abraham Maslow, the self-actualization, this reaching this point where we can feel fulfilled. It's climbing that pyramid. We can go beyond just our very basic needs. We can reach and bring about this deeper part of ourselves, because it's very difficult to tap into the deeper parts of ourselves when most of our mind and emotions are stuck in a particular negative situation or mindset or fixated on something. She goes on to say, knowing how to wait in sustained effort is a law that leads to victory. Let's read that again. Knowing how to wait in sustained effort is a law that leads to victory. If you ask any Olympian, if you ask any pioneer, anyone that does the work of a pioneer in any area, persistence and perseverance and waiting and putting in the time and the effort, that is what will lead you to your success. And no, I'm not only speaking of success in your career, because that's all great, well, and fine. But more important to that, because this physical life is not where we're going to spend eternity, more important to that is our own growth, our own understanding, our own development, understanding these different parts of us that come out at different moments in our lives, when we're stressed, when we're angry, when we're hurt. These different parts of ourselves that are presenting itself, the insecure part, the parts that are afraid. That's why the work on our inner child is so prominent nowadays. You hear about it all the time, at least for those of you who are interested in that type of field of work. There's so many books in English and the self-help section talking about healing your inner child. It's a part of us. It's an aspect. So let's not push away or neglect any parts of ourselves, but let's be like that diligent Olympian and just keep working at it, keep working and working on ourselves. And slowly we will begin to see the benefits. We will begin to feel the shifting happening. She says, as you desire security in your life, seek Jesus and entrust your plans to him. How can we entrust our plans to him if we have not yet even set any plans for ourselves? Have we bothered to make any goals for ourselves? And we're not just talking about, well, when I reach this age, I want to have this amount of money, or I want to have this amount of money in my 401k, or I want to have this house, or I want to have this. I'm not talking about things purely in the physical realm. Those things are fine. But what's more important are these plans for yourself. And I believe it was Benjamin Franklin. He was working on those virtues, working on himself. He had a plan. He set it out. Now, was he perfect? Oh, no, not by a long shot. But he was diligent, at least for the most part. He was quite successful in many areas on working on himself. He set a goal. He set goals. It wasn't just one or two. If we take some time to observe people in our lives, we're not talking about anyone famous here. Observe people in your life who seem to be really happy and content. Granted, some people put and wear masks, but observe the people that are truly happy, that seem grateful, that had this attitude of gratitude, and they don't seemingly look like they need a ton of stuff to make them happy. What's their secret? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Wow, why is that person so happy? Many years ago, probably over 10 years ago, we used to work with this nurse. And still to this day, I keep in communication with her. But working with her was always such a treat, such a delight. She just beamed happiness. Like it just seemed to ooze out of her pores. Just being in the vicinity of where she was, it just, you could feel that vibration of what she was. And the paradoxical thing was that many people spoke ill of her and say that she was fake or what have you. But for myself and a number of other people, we often question, what's her secret? She just seems so genuinely happy about life and just the smallest things. And it's just content, So we did get into a really nice conversation one day, many years ago, about what was it that made her so happy all the time. And it's actually quite simple, at least for her. Now, we don't say this to say that it's going to be easy or we can flip a switch inside of us and boom, coming to this understanding, we're automatically going to become a different person. No, it's gradual. It takes time. But she said that her close connection with God and her spirituality and her just being brought up in that environment, she just was very grateful for the smallest of things in her life. And that brought her joy, plain and simple. And she was a person who was very much always seeking Jesus. She was a person who had many goals in her life, not just in a professional sense, but in a moral sense. She had shared with us and a group of people that it was her desire to be the best person she could be. She could be the best daughter, the best partner, the best professional person, a good neighbor. It was just her goal that every year she'd work towards something as simple as that, just being a little bit better than she was the year before. Something extremely simple. At least it sounded simple to us. For sure, it was not a simple task because we are not perfect. We have our imperfections. We have our tendencies, whether it's a tendency to get upset or angry or to get frustrated. Again, nowhere in this text is it saying, or does Joanna share, that perfection is expected, that we have to get it right every single time. Doesn't say that anywhere. So take that idea of perfection out of your mind and just accept that we are going to fail at times and extend some grace to yourself and self-compassion, self-love, and set goals for yourself and make Jesus part of that experience for yourself in your life. She says, seek Jesus and entrust your plans to him. If he is our model and guide, we can obviously pray and connect with him and commune with him and saying, these are the goals I wish to have. And I put my trust in you, Jesus, to lead me, and connecting with that higher vibration, that higher energy. It is life-changing. If we can manage to discipline ourselves, if we can manage to work on our thoughts, discipline our habits, and set those goals for ourselves, inevitably we're going to reach success. Again, not perfection. Perfection, we don't want it to be misleading because that phrase, that word can be sort of a bad word for some people. But that's not what they're expecting of us. We just need to try our hardest and do all the good that we can do that was within our power. She says, do your part and do not give up on achieving seemingly distant objectives. It's very easy to get discouraged. It's like before a student embarks upon going to college and getting their degree. In the very beginning, it seems like a daunting task that we'll ever be able to reach the end. When you're first taking your beginning classes, and you're like, man, it's going to take X amount of time for me to be done this degree. At the point is for us to persevere, to persist, to have those goals, to work towards them. And to make sure we're including Jesus in every part of our lives. We're incorporating him into our lives. Whether it's a daily meditation, reading such books by Joanna de Angelis, having some type of spiritual practice, going to or attending, I can't even say go to your spiritual center anymore because of COVID, but participating in your center's activities, or any other spiritual practices that you have that can lead you to the higher ideals of life. You could tune your mind into the higher ideals of life. She says, take heart and persevere. Take heart and persevere. Be gentle with yourself. Show yourself some grace. We may stumble, and I think someone in the comment section, I'm not sure where it was. Here, things Raquel shared that phrase I've heard before: fail again, fail better. Or another phrase: if we're going to fail, you can fail in one area, but just you can continue all failing. Just don't fall in the same spot that you've been falling into. It's okay. Fall forward, not backward. This is a part of our experience. This is a part of our lives. And one of our viewers, Yasko, who's also from the Spirit Society of Baltimore, she's sharing that nature is patient and resilient. And nature is a great metaphor and is an amazing part of our world that we live in, because we're able to look at nature because it's perfect when man's not intervening. It's perfect in the way that God created it. It's a great reminder that nature is patient and resilient. And so are we, and we can be resilient. We just have to be persistently working at those things. And finally, she says, security will come to you as an effort of the peace that will illumine your heart, serving as a stimulus for all your future achievements. Security will come to you as an effort of the peace that will illumine your heart, serving as a stimulus for all your future achievements. So the more we work on ourselves, we will begin to feel more secure. We'll begin to, once we are able to accomplish small things, we feel more secure within ourselves to accomplish other things. For those of you who ever experienced a very intense hardship or trauma, you might have said to yourself, well, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. And indeed, it's true. If we're able to tackle certain things, we surely have the capability of tackling others. It is within our power, our God-given power, to be better. We're destined for happiness. That is our destination. That should be part of our goal that we're working towards. Like, yes, I want to feel happy. I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel secure. And our dear viewer and friend Abby shares that we should not judge ourselves so we can move on and learn. Absolutely. The guilt complex within us, and you can read more about it. We were talking about it earlier today, another live we did. The guilt complex that Joanna talks about, and you can read more in depth about it in the book Existential Conflicts, in the chapter entitled Guilt. Guilt has its purpose in our lives. Now, we must be able to acknowledge that we've done wrong, and it's totally normal for us to go, oh man, I messed that up. That was bad. Shouldn't have done that. We need to have that reaction. If not, we're just going to continue doing on all kinds of harmful things to other people. But the point is to not ruminate in that guilt. We read in the many different books of the André Louise collection, Psychographed by Chico Xavier, so many examples of souls of people who were once living on the earth, who discarnated, who were stuck in this loop of guilt and this guilt complex that they couldn't move on. They were unable to move past and achieve any form of happiness because they are stuck sort of constantly chastising themselves. when instead it does no good for us to constantly berate ourselves. The point is to acknowledge any wrong that we may have done and begin the reparative process, begin the process to healing and giving back to society, to others, and also to ourselves, to extend that self-love to ourselves, that compassion. So these actually are the thoughts we have to share for today. And again, this is from chapter 17 of the book, Jesus in Our Days. The title of the chapter, which is Jesus and Insecurity. So we highly encourage you, if you haven't ever done so, to purchase this book, to purchase and read and study any parts of Joanna's literature, because it's very uplifting and enlightening. And I'm going to steal Leo's role and say we have some comments and questions that we can share.
Yes, indeed, we do have some here. You already commented on a couple, Kirsten. So we'll. I mean, if you like to, is it better now? Sorry.
Yeah.
If you like to jump in as I'm going through them, please do so. I myself have a question, but I'll leave it to the end. If we have time, we go through that, because I think we did receive some great comments, mainly from Iracema, Alba, saying good evening to everyone. Antonia also saying hi to everyone. It's amazing to have everyone here. In that note, also we have Chris Bruno, who said, Edward McKenna, dear, if possible, anytime show it to Marcia. Love, Kiki. So and when I read this, I was thinking it's nice that we are not only helping a person, but B and C person sharing these things, these messages with many of those who are perhaps going through insecurity in their lives. Right? It's a very it's the issue is bigger than we can imagine in the lives of many. So thank you for sharing this and enlighten us with this message. Moving on, we have new 2020 Barry Scott Kaufman's book, Expanding Maslow, Transcend the New Science of Self-Actualization.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Regina, yes, definitely.
Thanks, Regina. Great suggestion.
And you said something really interesting, right, Kirsten? When we don't get one of those areas fulfilled, that can bring a lot of insecurity in our lives. So it's definitely a good point to use there. Yasko then comes and makes a comment by saying, or a question, is our insecurity results from our not acceptance of the impermanence of all things?
Wow. Thanks, Yasko. What a question. Wow, that's a fantastic question. So I will try to answer that in my best way possible. Is our insecurity the result from our non-acceptance or the impermanence of all things? Perhaps, yeah, there is that level of insecurity we feel because things are not constant. But perhaps it's also our perspective on life, because sometimes we have this perception or this ideal that we want everything to be a certain way. We want things to be predictable. We want them to turn out a certain way. And if they do not go a certain way, we get very upset. Or if things change lanes, we get very disturbed or bothered by it. But the idea is for that not to happen. The idea is for us to remain quiet or balanced even amidst the storm, so to speak. So yeah, that is an interesting information there, that it can be because we're attached to the idea of how something should be versus accepting that there are ebbs and flows in life. Things are going to, and people are going to come and go. But what remains permanent and long lasting is the work that we do on ourselves, the love that we give away, and the love that we show ourselves. So thank you, Yaska. That was a great question.
It is, and if I may jump in on this as well, Kirsten,
Please, please.
there is a Joanna de Angelis also talks about impermanence in the book Plenitude. That is one of the reasons of our failure to become happier, if we can say it that way. So definitely, it's a great point in this discussion. Next question that Kiasco also made: tranquil conscience means accepting myself, so no chronic guilty feelings. Not so sure. I mean, if you may want to clarify,
Yeah.
definitely yes.
Yeah, so no, I think she's asking if a tranquil conscience means self-acceptance and so no longer having the chronic guilty feelings. Yeah, the idea is to not be in that loop of constantly feeling guilty for everything that we're doing. You know, many years ago, when I lived in PA, when I lived in Pennsylvania, I'll never forget this bumper sticker that I saw. And I think 10 or some years ago, this was a popular thing. I guess maybe just the area I was living in, who knows? But I've seen this quote on bumper stickers, and I've seen this on the internet, where it says, if you feel guilty for no reason, you're probably a Catholic. Now, we're not saying that as a jab against Catholics, we're not. But sometimes when we affiliate with a certain belief system, with a certain religion, creed, or what have you, there comes along a lot of guilt. You know, we can acknowledge, oh, well, I'm failing in this area, or I'm falling in this area, and I keep falling, and then I end up in this loop of like, I do wrong and then I feel bad for it, and I do wrong again and I feel bad for it. It's like this never-ending cycle. But the point is for us to become more self-aware and make an active decision to work on those parts of ourselves, to understand those parts of ourselves, why it's presenting itself and what it has to teach us, when we have to learn from ourselves so we can stop that cycle. And to also understand, like we shared earlier, that guilt complex, it serves, the emotion of guilt has a purpose, but it does not serve the purpose for us to ruminate and constantly stay in that loop. If we wait until we have no guilty feelings, or if we are waiting to reach perfection or equate perfection with a tranquil conscience, you would be greatly mistaken, because there are plenty of human beings on this earth that have not attained perfection, but have a tranquil conscience. It's knowing that we've done the best of our abilities that we can do and being okay with that. And again, I've mentioned this before, but it's extending grace to ourselves.
Perfect. Thank you. Another comment here. Just a welcome or a good evening by Georgie Lacayo. Good evening, everyone. Very interesting class. Yasko made a comment. Mental evolution parallels our moral evolution. I believe this was actually during the part that Joanna de Angelis mentioned, that we should evolve morally in our physical body to do the best we can to evolve, knowing those two parallels.
Mm-hmm.
Then Raquel Leong, you already mentioned this, fell again, fell better, as stated by Payman Chodron. Yes. And then Yasko, nature is patient and resilient. So it's definitely an amazing teacher, if you will, right? On how things happen slowly and into parts. It doesn't give any leaps. So, and again, if you want to go ahead, I'm just going to read and you can stop me at any time so we can go over all of them. We're not missing anybody here. Abby mentioned also we should not judge ourselves so we can move on and learn. And then Yasko actually brought this comment here from Paula, or question rather. How do you think our collective insecurity is not making a commitment to life now?
How do you think our collective insecurity is not making a commitment to life right now? to life now. Do I understand her question? How do you think our collective insecurity is not making a commitment to life right now? I'm not sure of her phrasing, actually.
Is it maybe because whatever our insecurity now at creating our future or setting our future? I believe that's what it is. Well, in any case, we can always
We can come back to that.
exactly.
Paula, I have your contact, so you and I can have a discussion.
And Regina said, very helpful and thought-provoking. Kirsten, thanks. And then Rosaura said, Kirsten, thank you. You always bring us timely inspiration. Next, Alba asks, any thoughts about the general feeling of insecurity due to the worldwide pandemic? Ways to overcome it?
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, lots of thoughts on this. So, one of the amazing things and purposes of pandemics, calamities, and things of that nature, we can read more about in different spiritualist literature. A large part of that lesson plan, if you will, from higher spirituality to allow those things, to allow these things that we're enduring now, this pandemic, to occur, is for us to self-reflect. It is for those parts of ourselves to become more visible, for us to work on them. So it's not so much, and I think sometimes we may want to get rid of insecurity, and that I don't believe that that's what Joanna is talking about, but it's sort of coming to get to know those parts of ourselves, get to know that insecurity, and to educate ourselves, and to take Jesus as our model and guide. Even Jesus himself, he knew what he was getting into. He knew the planet he was coming to. He knew the trials and tribulations, and he knew that people had free will. As much as he was Christ, and he is, the Christ of our planet. People are unpredictable because we have free will. So how do we reconcile with this unpredictability, this insecurity that presents itself because we don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic? Where is it going to lead us in society? That's very unsettling from that perspective. But sometimes, like in this instance, it's an opportunity for us to try to reframe and readjust our perspective and not look at it as an opportunity to feel insecure, but rather an opportunity to put our faith where it belongs in the higher purposes of life. Putting our faith in Jesus, our model and guide, that all things that are happening for a purpose and a reason, and learning to flow with it. And instead of sort of fighting against it, flowing with it, as the current. The more you push against it, the more you're going to feel that pushback. But the more we begin to work with it in the flow of things, the more you'll be able to manage it, and it'll be less scary. And it's also accepting that idea of impermanence, of letting go of this need to want to control everything, to have an actual false sense of security. Because we sometimes have that as well. We think that if I control everything, or if I know everything that's going to happen, then I'll be secure, which is a fallacy. Because even if we know everything that's going to happen, we still don't know how we're going to feel. And life is a journey. We should embrace the ups and downs. It's a different perspective. It is definitely is a reframing. It definitely is a new way to look at things. And it does take a lot of effort. Anytime we have to change or reframe something, it takes emotional, and sometimes it even feels physical effort to do so.
Okay. Kirsten, if I may, in this discussion, I would like to. I wanted to leave it to the end, but I think you touch on certain aspects of what I was actually would like to ask. We talked about having a plan, right? Knowing our purpose here. I think it's very important for as an answer. I'm going to that I would like to make. But it relates to what I have to ask. It relates to insecurity and happiness. We are insecure sometimes about ourselves of feeling happiness, or feeling happy, or striving to, for example, have a better job, or striving to have a better partnership with our partners or with our family members, because this or that issue, or what the world will say, right? In many aspects of life. What would you say with these teachings now that you brought to us would be an antidote to such a feeling, the insecurity, or the guilty, the insecurity because of the guilty of feeling happy more than others?
Hmm. I think that's an emotion that happens quite a bit for some people. Especially now during these times of pandemic, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I feel bad to feel happy when there's so many people suffering."
Mhm.
Is that what you're kind of referring to
That is
in
a
a sense?
great example. Yes.
So, how not to feel guilty for feeling happy? Each one of us is the bearer, or rather, I should say, each one of us reaps what we sow. So if you or someone else is in a position where you are experiencing a bounty, you are experiencing the harvest, a great harvest that you have worked so hard to plant and you're now reaping, we have every right to feel happy. And we have to learn how to separate between what are the experiences of others and what are our experiences, and what we have a right to feel and experience and what others have the right to feel and experience. Oftentimes we might say, and even now, Lou, I don't mean to put you on the spot like this, but it just came to my mind. I'm sorry. Um, Before we went live, um, I happened to be complaining of just actually not even complaining. I was mentioning how I'm just, tired being pregnant and having a toddler, working full time and all that kind of great stuff, being a spouse, a wife, and just, feeling tired. And Leo made a joke, which I've heard before, like, why are you tired? Tired from what? And so I've heard other people in my household make that similar comment to me. So, and though it's funny and it's comical, but if you think about it, it's actually kind of wrong, because in that one instant, we're acknowledging that that other person may not have a right to feel the way that they do, that how you take on life, how you view perspective is the way. And because you experience that, then so does everybody else. It's a habit that everybody does. When we view life in a certain way, it's a habit that we all do this. When we understand something, for instance, I do a lot of training at work for new employees. So whenever we have a new employee come on and we're training on a specific computer system that's kind of complex, and because, I've been working with this particular computer system for 9 years, sometimes it's popped into my head, like, when I'm working with someone, I'm thinking, why don't you get this? Like, it's easy. I don't ever say that, but then I always catch myself, thank God. And I say, you know what? Once upon a time, I was new at this. I didn't know everything. I struggled in the beginning. It was overwhelming. So we all have our own process to go through. And honestly, some people are just different. Some people are just different than us. So again, we have to allow ourselves to be happy. And sometimes, Leo, I would say to someone who would make a comment such as the one that you just made, is sometimes we have to work on our cognitions. We have to work on our thought processes. And Joanna refers to it as educating our thoughts.
Very
Educating.
right. It's amazing because this, as we read the message from Happy Life earlier, we learned from Joanna de Angelis in the passage that sometimes we feel down and we try to put people down as well. The way we perceive the world, we want to transpose that into the world. The same way when we're happy, we we try to impose that on others as well, but people may not find what you find happiness as happiness, right? It may be an okay state of mind or spirit. So it's really nice that you clarify this. And yes, I was joking. I know that you're going, Fragna, going through this, and it really puts the responsibility back on us to assess the situation, right? And I think this will make us deal with the external and the internal, obviously, all of us, in a much more, let's say, subtle and happier way. So thank you for the clarification. But it is definitely a difficulty that we find now, where people, they want to accomplish something, but they're afraid of being happy. They're afraid to show the world that this is who I am and it's okay, right? This is what I find as happiness. So obviously, when it's something not detrimental to others, so it's always good to put out there. So thank you for the clarification
Sure.
and the ideals. Next, we move to Yasko. Yasko mentioned Easterners are less insecure than us, and it's a question. Yes. I'll leave it up to
you. Some curveballs there. I couldn't say I would be generalizing a whole population of people. Culturally, can I say that they're more insecure? I don't know that I have the background or the studies in order to really give a real educated response to that. So I'm going to have to say hard pass on that question. That's my response to you, Yasko, but thank you. We love you. You ask the best questions and you're always interactive. So thank you, Yasko.
Regina, I believe, also is mentioning C.S. Lewis, the
Problem of
pain. Yes.
A great text. You can go back to that. My technical staff here, you can go back to that comment from Regina. Yes, The Problem of Pain. A great text if you haven't read it, by C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is this amazing, I want to say, not American, I think he's Scottish or Irish maybe, I forget. European, I think. But he was the famous writer of all those books like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, if I'm not mistaken. We wrote a lot of children's books. But he also had a lot of life-changing experiences. So a lot of his what he published is actually very inspirational. He ended up having he grew a very deep connection with spirituality. So she gives a quote here: God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. 1,000%. Pain is there to teach us. Pain is not a punishment. It is not because we have a punishing God. It is simply because we have a God that wishes to educate and wishes to draw out of us this seed of beauty we have within us that he knows is there. Will we not give it much attention? But it's one way that he does speak to us, with the ways in which he's created life itself, that when we're consistently not on the right path, pain is there to let us know that, hey, you're really not on the right path. It's the same idea of when, in a physiological sense, our pain receptors, if they were not working, we'd be in serious health issues. But because, generally speaking, if you're in good health, if you smack your hand up against the wall, you're going to feel pain. That there's a purpose in that, telling the rest of our body, like, hey, don't smack your hand against the wall. Life is in the same way. If you do this and this, you're going to experience pain. So unless you're a sadist, it's better that we make decisions that don't cause us those things. But that's life, though, because sometimes, we have to fail and try again, and fail and try again, and learn and move on.
I know we're not going to go over right now. To answer Paula's questions, when you get to answer that in the phone with her, she says that it's actually on top of page 77 that relates to her question.
Okay.
Aloysia says there is always the sunshine behind gray clouds. And then the next one, going through suffering is normal in human life. Stay in it is optional. Great truth there. Yes. And then Regina clarified, saying Irish, but
C.S.
educated and
C.S.
living
Lewis.
in England.
I
Yeah.
thought he was Irish, but yeah, I think yeah, you're right. He grew up in England. Yeah. So all great things. Thanks to everybody for participating. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I'll leave you with your final thoughts, Kirsten, so we can close up, and I will say the final prayer after you finish it up.
Final thoughts. My final thoughts. I'll let Joanna actually speak. And she says, and I'll requote what I already shared. She says, as you desire security in your life, seek Jesus and entrust your plans to him. Do your part and do not give up on achieving seemingly distant objectives. Take heart and persevere. So, dear friends, we leave you with these thoughts from Joanna and wish you well.
Thank you so much for this amazing work, Kirsten, putting this together for us. Let us thank God for the opportunity that we have to be here. The mentors, our mentors, Joanna de Angelis, through the hands of Divaldo Franco, working to enlighten us. If anybody's feeling insecure, or if anybody's going through any doubts in their lives, please reach out to us. Let us know. Perhaps we can go over these teachings with you over the phone, whichever way possible. Watch this video over and over if possible. Read the book, as Kirsten said, and it's certainly important for all of us to read, even though we take the time to prepare these presentations. What she reads it, what I read, and what you will read is completely different, and we may come across teachings that is most important to us. So we ask you again, please read it. If you need to receive a copy or get a copy of the book, let us know. We'll help you on finding the ways. On that note, I would like to invite everyone for a final prayer. You may find again a comfortable but yet straight position. This is the moment that we come together to thank our Creator for this amazing teaching, this amazing reminder that we received here tonight. We hope that we can carry this with our lives. That in the moments of insecurity, as Joanna de Angelis said herself, it is not easy to find or to be secured in this world of trials and expiation. That we seek Jesus' teachings, our master and guide, to feel less insecure, to pave the way to a more balanced life, helping ourselves, helping others, to reach this security, knowing our purpose, understanding ourselves and why we're here. And let us put to the test our capabilities to be that person that we strive to be, a good father, a good mother, a good son, daughter, brother, or sister, and reach enlightenment through our good deeds, through the habits that we have already, good habits that we have developed, while we're striving to develop new ones and leaving with one another good examples. We wish that each one of us watching this now and in the future may receive these enlightenments and carry it out throughout their lives. We thank you, and so be it. Thank you again, friends. Thank you again, Kirsten, for this amazing moment, and we'll see you next.